Good morning Year 4 and welcome back. Hopefully you have had a lovely rest over half term and your brains are all refreshed and ready for some maths. This week we will be starting a new unit. We're going to be looking at fractions. So each day I would like you to look at the Fluent in 5 slide and give yourselves 5 minutes to solve the calculation. So if you've got a timer or if you're watching the video, please do pause to carry out those calculations and then check your answers, then record your daily score on the weekly results sheet. And then each day, work through the day's slides, making sure that you try all of the questions, pause the video where I ask you to pause it, and then we'll be going through answers together and you can check them. There will be tasks set at the end of the day and the answers were provided so that you can self-mark. Now when you're self-marking, if you have any incorrect answers, you should purple polish them, and hopefully as you purple polish that will help you understand where you've made any mistakes. If you have had a go at some of the questions and you're still not sure about the answers, we will be holding our daily surgeries on Teams. Mr. Anderson and I are doing those this week. So please do have a go at the questions so that if you do have a question about them, then you've at least tried and we can work through that together if you want to join in with the surgeries. So here are today's Fluent in 5. If you could pause the video and give yourselves 5 minutes to try that, and then I'll show you the answers in a second. So hopefully you were able to carry out this one mentally, and you know if you're adding 3 ones on to 5 ones, you don't need to count 145, 146, you can add 3 to 5, which is 8, so we know the answer is 148. B, hopefully you tried that using a written method, and you would know that if 894 take away something is 568, to work out what that something is, you can take 568 away from 894 to give you the answer. So hopefully you will have worked it out using a column subtraction, which looks at something like this. Now, part C, 3/4 of 12, you were to try that mentally. If you struggled with that one, don't worry because we are working on fractions this week. But hopefully you were able to remember that 1/4 of something, finding 1/4 of something is like dividing it by 4. And then if you wanted 3/4, we would then multiply that by 4. So 1/4 of 12 equals 3, because we're dividing 12 by 4, and then 3 of those quarters, we would multiply that 3 by 3, which would give us 9. And then finally, 65 times 3, you were to use a written method. Hopefully you were able to do that. 3 times 5 ones is 15 ones, which I regroup into 5 ones and 1 10, and 3 times 6 tens is 18 tens, add the other 10 on, which is 19 tens, and that is the same as 9 tens and 100. So on to today's maths. I'm learning about the numerator and denominator of fractions. Now we did cover fractions in year 3, so hopefully this won't seem too unfamiliar to you, but today we're specifically looking at the numerator and the denominator. So first of all, let's refresh ourselves with what a fraction is. A fraction means a part of something or a number of parts of something. Now, if you remember back to year 3, we always talk about equal parts, and the fraction is equal parts of a whole. Now, the whole can be a number, it could be a bar of chocolate, it could be a box full of bricks. The whole can vary, but when we're talking about the fraction of that whole, we must split it into equal parts. And the number on top of the fraction shows how many of the parts we're talking about. The number on the bottom shows how many parts that whole has been divided into. So let's have a look again with a picture. It helps us to represent it, helps us to visualize it. So we have a circle here, a whole circle, and it has been divided into 4 equal parts. So the numerator tells us the number of those equal parts that we're talking about. In this case, we are thinking about the number of parts that have been shaded. So we know that one of the equal parts has been shaded, and that there are 4 equal parts. So the number of equal parts in the whole is 4, and that is our denominator. So the numerator is the number of the equal parts that we are talking about. The denominator is the total amount of the parts of the whole. So if we wanted to think about how many parts were not shaded, our denominator would still be 4 because that doesn't change. We still have 4 equal parts. But our numerator would be 3 because we have 3 parts out of the 4 that are not shaded. So the fraction of parts not shaded in this representation would be 3/4. The fraction of parts shaded is 1/4. So if you want to pause the video and just maybe rewind it, listen to that again, or just read this again and look at the diagram, that will help refresh you with the numerator and the denominator and just remembering what a fraction is. So let's have a look at another example. In this example, again, we have a circle, and that circle is our whole. But this time it's divided into 3 equal parts. So in this example, the fraction 2/3 represents the number of parts that are coloured yellow. The numerator is 2, so that's the number of parts that we are talking about, and the denominator is 3. That's the number of parts in the whole. Again, if we wanted to flip that, how many parts are not shaded? The denominator isn't going to change because we still have 3 parts, but the numerator would be 1 because we only have 1 part that isn't shaded. So then it would be 1/3 of the circle is not shaded. So pause the video and have a go at this one. What fraction of the circle is shaded? And tell me what the numerator is and the denominator is. And just remember the total number of equal parts in the whole is the denominator. The number of shaded parts is the numerator. Pause the video and have a go at that, and we'll go through that in a second. So hopefully you were able to identify that 3/4 of the circle is shaded. Remember, shaded is what we're looking for here. The numerator, the number of parts that we are interested in, is 3. And the denominator, so the number of total parts in the whole, the number of equal parts in the whole, is 4. Now here is a word problem which might sound a bit tricky when you first read it, but just take your time, read it again like I always say, and have a go at that. So the numerator of a fraction is twice as large as 4. The denominator of the fraction is 7 more than the numerator. What is the fraction? So pause the video in a second and have a go at that. It's not as tricky as it reads, just work out one part, then the other part. You'll need a bit of times table knowledge and a bit of addition knowledge, and then just need to remember which is the numerator and which is the denominator. So have a go at that. So hopefully you were able to work out that the fraction is 8/15. The numerator of the fraction is twice as large as 4. Twice as large as 4 simply means 2 times 4. The denominator of the fraction is 7 more than the numerator. So we've already worked out our numerator is 8, 2 times 4. So to find the denominator, we just need to add 7 more onto the numerator. So 8 plus 7 more is 15. So hopefully you were able to work through that. So I'd like you to have a go at working out what the numerator and the denominator is in each of these fractions. You've got a number representation and a pictorial representation. I would like you to tell me what the numerator is and what the denominator is for each of these. Pause the video and have a go at that. You will see that we've got shapes and we also have groups of items. So we're looking at the fraction of the whole shape or the whole group. Pause the video and we will go through that in a second. So here are the answers. So hopefully you remembered that the numerator is the top part of the fraction, and it represents the number of parts that we are interested in. So in this instance, each of the parts that are shaded. And we have one part shaded in these three examples, two parts in this example, 5, 3 and 2. And we can also see that that marries up with the top part of each of the fractions. The denominator represents how many equal parts the whole is divided into, and it also marries up to the bottom part of the fraction. So just pause the video and check your answers there. And that brings us on to today's practice. Now, a few of them are word problems, so you are going to have to read it and really think about what the question is asking you. So we have some numerators and denominators that have been jumbled up. You have to find the fractions by using the information below. So it's a bit like the word problem that we looked at a second ago. This fraction has a denominator that is 2 more than its numerator. The sum of its numerator and denominator is 8. So remember what the sum of something is, that's when we're adding together. And you have to work out what fraction it is. So again, we'll maybe need to do a bit of trial and error, just maybe looking at some of these numbers, thinking about what number has 2 more than it, and if we add the denominator and the numerator together, the total is 8. And again, another word problem for you to work out. So it's just a case of really looking at what the question is asking you to do, taking your time, and always using these numbers to find the answer. A few more on this page. And then finally, I would like you to write the correct fraction in the first column. So you can use the pictorial representation, or you have the numerator and the denominator here. So pause the video, have a go through these practice and this extra task, and then once you finish you can unpause the video to check your answers. We don't need this work uploaded today, and that's not to Purple Mash anyway. We are now using Teams, but you don't need to upload this work. There will be an assessment task at the end of the week that we will give you so we can see how you've got on. So hopefully you've worked your way through those, and you can pause the video, then check your answers in a second. So here are the answers to today's task. If you just want to pause the video to help you, I'll just circle those to make it a bit clearer for you. So in the first example, the fraction has a denominator that is 2 more than its numerator. The sum of the numerator and denominator is 8. What fraction is it? Well, we can check that, can't we? The sum of both of them is 8. 3 plus 5 is 8. And the denominator is 2 more than the numerator. And again, we've got a denominator of 5, numerator of 3. So I'm able to double check that those are the correct answers. And hopefully you were able to do that too. And then this is the final sheet. Filling in the fractions, you could have looked at the pictorial representation, or you were given the numerators and the denominators. And as before, the numerator is the top part of the fraction, the denominator is the bottom part. Well done, and I will see you tomorrow.